It's green time! We're green in Dominaria United time. That's what time it is to do limited set review time. So I'm going to be ranking some green cards based on how I think they're going to do in the limited format. If you'd like to know more about how I plan on what my stuff that I say means, there's a video telling you about how I rank cards. So go watch that about the tiers and stuff, if you don't know what the tiers mean. I don't really explain it that much. I kind of just talk about the cards in general. So, alright, let's talk about the cards then. Starting with Barkreeve Crusher. It's a 4-mana 2/5 with Enlist. So this is kind of like really your test for how good Enlist is. It does come down on turn 4. It can block pretty much everything. It attacks as at least a 4/5 most of the time. So if you just got a 4-mana 5/5, right? That would be a tier 2 card, I think. That would be a good card. It wouldn't be like game-breakingly good, but it would be good. And how often is this a 4-mana 5/5? Rarely. It's rarely a 4-mana 5/5. And so I think that's sort of where I sit on it. I think it's sort of mediocre, because I don't think it gets to be a 4-mana 5/5 very often, and it's sort of what it like aspires to be, is a 4-mana 5/5. Again, I'm wary about Enlist having to tap down, like, it's, oh, I want to attack with this 2/5, and I'll tap down my huge, like, 5/5 to attack with it, and it's like, but you could have just attacked with the 5/5 and left this thing, you know what I mean? Like, is this really doing things, or is it just, like, making you more vulnerable to getting attacked on the crackback by enlisting? So, that's my take. Next, Bite Down. It's a 2-mana bite spell. Your target creature you control deals damage equal to its power to target creature or planeswalker you don't control. Also works with Death Touch, because the creature deals the damage. There is not much cheap Death Touch in this set, so I looked, and that means that these type of cards generally are worse when you don't have a lot of cheap Death Touch in green, especially. It's okay with enlist things, because you can enlist attack and then use the bite down to like do that thing where you're like killing your opponent's biggest stuff because you have a big power creature now. That's probably the main use case of why this is like here. These type of cards are generally fine. There's just a lot, again, another like common removal spell. Just a lot of removal in this set. At common in all the colors and uncommon. Just stuff's going to be getting removed left and right. So not a set for me is my is my guess. It's going to be me just like sitting in the corner like, guys, removal's bad, removal's not good, and it's just going to be everybody, like every single player just being like, haha, removal spells. I'm just going to cast all my removal spells, and just like, Sag. So that's preparing for that. Next, Bog Badger, 3-mana 3/3. That enters the battlefield if you kick it, and the kicker is 1 black mana. Creatures you control gain menace until end of turn. Yeah, sign me up for this. Basically, you're gonna play this in pretty much every, like, again, a 3-mana 3/3 base rate is totally fine. Like if you have that card in your deck, you're gonna probably just play it. It would be hard for me to find a deck where I'm like, man, I really want to cut that 3-mana. Now, obviously, if you have black to kick it, you can deal a bunch of damage to your opponents. Doesn't need to be able to do that. It seems really good to me. I'm really happy with this card. I think it's good. Next, Broken Wings. It's a reprint from every set ever. 2 and a green for destroy target artifact, enchantment, or creature with flying. It's always bad. There's nothing that makes me think that it's gonna not be bad this time. So that's kind of, yeah. Next, Colossal Growth. 1 and a green for an instant that makes your creature get +3/+3 until end of turn. If you kick it for 1 red mana, the creature gets +4/+4 and gains trample and haste. And gains haste. Why does it gain haste? I don't know, because you're paying 3 mana for a combat trick. I don't know how the haste matters, but whatever. Because then it's like, oh, now let me just cast my instant speed combat trick before I. Whatever. Whatever, fine. It's bad. Moving on. Deathbloom Gardener 2 and a green for a 1/1 with Death Touch. You can tap it to add 1 mana of any color. No thanks. Not interested for me. This kind of takes like everything that was good about Myconid and just like spits in its face. It's like, oh, you liked having a nice little 1/1 body that like made it so your opponents didn't want to attack with their 2-drops? Well, what if we gave you a Death Touch thing that your opponents are totally happy to attack into with their 2-drops and trade with, because then you don't get to ramp, and they like and you're just losing. So I think this is terrible. Notably, if it is like the only Death Touch thing that works with the Bite spell, but I don't think that you want to have these cards that much in your deck. So kind of yeah, it enables Kicker of other colors, but I don't think that there's that much desire for that. Next, Defiler, Vigor 5, 3 black, 3 green for a 6/6 with Trample. And it has the Defiler text, but for green, and when you cast a green permanent spell, you put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. So this is the best Defiler. Obviously, it's just, I think it's the best rare in the set. I mean, you know what I mean? Like, you cast a green spell, and it's like, oh, and now, like, you just win the game because this thing is now a 7/7 trample that is hitting your opponent, and also anything that was on your board. Like, it's whatever. We don't need to discuss how good this card is. This card is good for so many different reasons. Like, imagine you play this, and it's just, like, you have, like, a green, like, these aren't really 1-drops, but they're like a 2-drop next turn, and you just, like, play it for 1 mana, and then you ding yourself for 2, but who cares, because you just made, like, a 7/7 and, like, a whatever. Now, it is cast, so obviously you can't, like, if you cast a creature spell, the creature's not going to get +1/+1 when it enters the battlefield, but anyways, it's still busted. Next, Elf Haim Worm. 4 and a green for a 5/4 Vigilance with Trample. Not interested in this. Generally, these are pretty bad. These type of cards tend to be pretty bad, so I don't really want it. Next, Elvish Hydromancer. 2 and a green for a 3/2. And if you kick it for 3 and a blue, you create a token that's a copy of target creature you control. So it's 7 mana for a 3/2 that copies a creature you control. Which sometimes is this, and you're paying 7 mana for 2 3/2s, which is fine in the late game. And if you want to copy like a 4/4 in the late game, it's really nice. I think this is just a good card. Like, if you have to play it as a 3/2 for 3, you're not losing the game doing that. But you obviously would rather just play it the other 3-drop, but I think you're going to play this on 3 more than you're going to play it on 7, but I think when you play it on 7, you're going to be like, man, I'm glad that I had the ability to play it on 7. Just the flexibility makes this card really good, in my opinion. Next, Floriferous Vine Wall. 2 mana for an 0/2 defender. When it enters the battlefield, look at the top 6 cards of your library, reveal a land card, put it into your hand, put the rest on the bottom of your library in random order. So it does draw you a card, but it doesn't really defend you. It's a defender, yay, but it doesn't actually defend because it's an 0/2. So, yeah, it gets a land, it draws you a card. It's not especially great. I mean, it does draw cards, it's fine. I think it's just tier 3. Like, the body is really... Like, this is sort of testing like the limits of, like, how much does a body matter in Magic? You know, 0/2 is really not it. Next, 1 mana for Gaia's Might. It's a instant spell. Target creature gets +1/+1 until end of turn for each basic land type among lands you control. So it's always +2/+2 pretty much. And maybe it's +3/+3, especially in green more often than it is not. But probably usually just worse than Giant Growth, especially because Giant Growth, I think I should know that Giant Growth gets trampled or not, because otherwise I'm not a real Magic player. But yeah, it's good. It's a 1 mana trick. 1 mana tricks are better than not 1 mana tricks. Next, Herd Migration. 6 and a green for a sorcery with Domain. It creates a 3/3 green beast creature token for each basic land type among lands you control. And you can also pay 2 and like basically channel it and search the library for a basic land card, reveal it, and put it in your hand, and you gain 3, which is a good ability. So yeah, I mean, this helps enable your domain stuff, and it also is a domain payoff, which seems really good. The payoff is great. It's not probably it's not always just game ending, but I mean you create 4/3/3s and you're like, yeah, I mean, I'm pretty happy with that for 7 mana. It's not bad. So, and like you do need to create at least 3 for this to be like playable. If you create 4, you're like, all right, we did it. We played 4 colors and we're happy about it, right? Next, Hexbane Tortoise, 2 and a green, 3/2 ward 2 enlist. This is like the exact opposite of what you want on an enlist card. It's 3 power, 2 toughness. No. No thanks. I don't want that. Like enlist allows me to augment my power. I have enough power, okay? I don't need more. If you could just be like a 2/3, I'd be like, okay, maybe we're getting somewhere here. But 3/2, like I know there's a ward 2 on this, so it's hard to deal with kinda, but again, any enlist creature that just gets blocked by your opponent's 2-drop, I'm like, no thanks. I'm like, that's not it's not where I want to be. So out on this card. Next, Leaf Crown Visionary, green for a 1/1 elf. Other elves you control get +1/+1. Whenever you cast an elf spell, you may pay an additional green mana, and if you do, you draw a card. So any vintage, or I guess any legacy players in the chat, there's a cycle of these, obviously, if you haven't seen. This is the best one of the cycle, which is why it costs green instead of just 1 and a green like all the other ones do. But yeah, this is good because there actually are elves. There actually are, like, almost all of the commons are elves, so this does actually do something in green, unlike many of the other colors. The white one is also good, but this and the white one I think are the 2 best of this cycle. Casting cost is tough, though. Next, Linebreaker Bailoff. 3 green, 4/5 enlist. Can't be blocked with powers of creatures with power 2 or less. Now this is an enlist card, baby. This is Dreadlinorm, okay? It's not Dreadlinorm. It's still really good. It's still good. I like it. It makes it so your enlisting can't get chumped. It's big. It smashes. You can hit your opponent for 8 sometimes, and they're just like, man, I really don't want to like double block this because now my stuff's gonna like you're 2-for-1ing your opponent with it. So like, this seems good. This seems like a good enlist card. This is the type of enlist card I want. Yeah, no complaints here on this card. It seems really nice. Next, Lion War Green Widow, 2 and a green, 4/3 reach trample, and it has domain. You can pay 7 and a green to return it from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped, and that costs less for each land type. If it leaves the battlefield, then it gets exiled. Yeah, this card's just really good. You just get a lot for 3 mana. So, and you can buy it back too in the late game. And it has trample and reach, so it just is a really good spy. This is just great. This is just a great card. That's all I have to say about it. Next, Lion War Loam Speaker, 2 mana for 1/3. You can tap it to add 1 mana of any color, and you can also tap it to make target land you control become a 3/3 elemental creature with haste. It's still a land. And you can only do it as a sorcery, so you can't block with your lands. I think this is just fine. Mana dorks tend to not be like incredibly good. They tend to be like whatever. And then this does fix you, which is nice. And it's 2 mana, fixing, and it does make your lands do stuff in the late game. So, yeah, I think it's pretty good. I don't think it's like I think it's just fine. I don't think it's like incredibly good. I think it's a tier 2 card. I don't think it's tier 1. I don't think it's like really like one of the best like powering your deck here. Next, Lion War Stalker, 1 mana for a 1/1 Elf Warrior. When another creature enters the battlefield under your control, it gets +1/+0 until end of turn. So this just hits really hard. Theoretically, what you could do with this is you could obviously play it on 1, and then you play a 2-drop, and then you hit your opponent for 2, and they're just like, oh, I guess I'll just be getting hit for 2 now. Like, if you're on the play and you have this on 1, it's like, oh, congrats. Like, you're just hitting your opponent for like 5 damage. And then sometimes you can like you can just like threat of activation this. There are some instant speed ways to generate 1/1. There aren't a ton of them. There are some. Generally in white there are a couple. But this just makes it very good. So I think this is a good one drop. I do. I really think the amount of damage this is going to deal. You can also pump it up and then use it to enlist something to make the thing even bigger. So yeah, just seems good to me. Next, Magnagoth Sentry, 3 and a green for a 4/4 with reach, and that's it. So there's not really anything interesting about this card. Just kind of a vanilla card. I don't think this is really very good anymore. We have better cards these days, but it's fine. I mean, you can play this in your deck, and you're going to be happy. Like, you're not going to like lose the game. You're playing on 4, and you're going to be like, yeah, I mean, it's a 4-mana 4/4. That's pretty annoying to deal with. It's not killing me immediately, but it's annoying. Sort of. That's what it's got. Next, Mossbeard Ancient. 5 green for a 7/7 with trample, and when it enters the battlefield, you gain 5 life. This variety of cards has been really good. Usually they cost 6 mana. This one costs 7, but it gives you trample in exchange, which I think is a pretty good deal. You know, I think I'm pretty happy with that. It is expensive, but it does get you back into the game. It basically stabilizes your whole board presence. Again, you probably don't want to run like 4 of these, but I mean, maybe you could run 4 if you're like this. This is the type of card that would get me to play the 3-drop that adds a mana of any color. This is the kind of thing that wants you to ramp. So, like if you have a bunch of ramp stuff and you're ramping into this is what you want to be ramping into. So, that's my take on this card. Also a really good reanimate target if you are in black-green. Like if that one reanimate spell that's like, oh, you lose a bunch of life. This is sort of like the card you want to be hitting with that. So it sort of does a lot of things. I think it's really good. Next, Nishoba Brawler. 1 and a green for a trample X or star 3. Its power is equal to the number of basic land types among lands you control. So usually it's 2/3. It becomes a 3/3 sometimes. Sometimes it's more than that. Rarely does it matter. A 2-mana 2/3 is just good, so I'm happy with that. Sometimes it's a 1/3, and you're a little sad, but it wears combat tricks very, very well. Also, is sort of what it does. So that's kind of what you want to be doing. Next, Queryion Beastcaller, 2-mana 2/2. When you cast a creature spell, put a +1/+1 counter on it. When it dies, distribute all of the +1/+1 counters that it had to other creatures you control, which is really good. This is really good. It gets a bunch of value, and then when your opponent kills it, because they're like, I can't let this thing get any bigger, it just makes all your stuff bigger. So, it's really good to me. Scout the Wilderness is next. It's 2 and a green for sorcery. You search your library for a basic land card, put that card into the battlefield tapped, you shuffle. If you kick it for 1 and a white, it creates 2 1/1 white soldier creature tokens, which is probably not enough for me to be interested, but, you know, maybe. I don't know, I'm not seeing it. I think this is kind of meh. Yeah. Slow ramp is not really where you want to be at. Next, Silverback Elder. 2 green for a 5/7, so this is just absolutely huge 5-drop. That does cost 3 green. When you cast a creature spell, you choose 1, you destroy an artifact or enchantment, you look at the top 5 cards of your library, you put a land card onto the battlefield tapped, and the rest on the bottom of your library in random order, or you gain 4. So this thing ramps you for 5. I don't know, it's just a busted big dude that just is huge. So I don't, you know. It makes all your stuff into like gain 4 life when it enters the battle. This is just great. This card's just great. Next, Slimefoot's Survey. 4 and a green for sorcery. Search your library for up to 2 land cards that each have a basic land type. Put them onto the battlefield tapped. Shuffle. Look at the top X cards of your library where X is the number of basic land cards you control. Put 1 of them on top of your library and the rest on the bottom in a random order. So, not interested in this card. It's expensive ramp that doesn't even draw you a card. It just kind of puts a card on top, which isn't really very good. It just kind of doesn't. Does it draw like? Yeah, it doesn't draw you a card. It just puts it on top. So, even if it drew you a card, would it matter? Nobody knows. Nobody knows. Stair Spinner. It's a 1 and a green, 1/3, 2 mana, reach. When it blocks a creature with flying, it's +2/+0. This card is bad. It's sort of always been bad. I don't really see it being better in this set than any of the other sets this exact card has been in. Yeah, I don't know. It's just too situational usually. Next, Strength of the Coalition. Single green mana for an instant. Target creature you control gets +2/+2 until end of turn. If the spell is kicked, which is 2 and a white, you put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control also, which includes the creature that you're targeting. So that's pretty good. It's pretty good. So I'm pretty into that, I guess. Yeah, I don't know. There's really not a whole lot else to say here on this card. It's a good trick. It's big. Next, Sunbathing Root while I'm dropping stuff off of my desk. This is not what you want to be doing. It's a 2/2. And that's it. And you can pay 4 mana with Domain until end of turn. It gets +1/+1 for each basic land type of mountain lands you control. And you can only do it once each turn. So it probably turns into a 4/4 or 5/5. It's Threat of Activation, but you have to have 4 mana up. But yeah. It's probably better than the standard one that we sometimes see, where you can like have a 2/2 and you can pay 2 to give it Death Touch. I would say that this is probably a better ability than that most of the time. However, it's not always true. But yeah, so I think that it's fine. I don't think it's great. I think it's fine. Next, Tail Swipe. Single green mana for 8. Instant. Target creature you control and target creature you don't control. If the creatures fight each other, if you cast this spell during your main phase, your creature gets +1/+1. So if you do it not during combat, it makes your guy bigger. So you're probably just going to do it not during combat, I would guess, because fight spells tend to be bad generally. Especially like during combat, they get blown up very easily. So I would say you're probably always just casting this as if it's a sorcery most of the time. But fight spells tend to be pretty bad. So next, Tear Asunder. 1 and a green for an instant. Exile target artifact or enchantment. If the spell is kicked for 1 and a black, you exile target non-land permanent instead. Kind of buried the lead here. This card kind of buries the lead. What this card really says is 2 green black, exile target non-land permanent, and sometimes you cast it for 2 mana. But this is basically a black, green, gold card. I'm doing all of the kicker stuff in the colors that the card is because it's just easier for me to visualize it that way. Maybe that's technically not like the appropriate categorization of the cards, but I don't know. It's just easier for me to look at it. What color does the card background look like? That's the color that I'm going with. That it is. But yeah, this card's really good. If you just play green-black. If you're just playing green, you should not play this card. Really. Next, Territorialmaru. 4 and a green for a star. Its power and toughness are each equal to the number of basic land types among lands you control times 2. So it's probably a 4/4 or a 6/6 most of the time. Is that great? No. If you like are really heavy into being 5 colors, which, sometimes you are, it'd be cool. You get like a 10/10. I don't know. There's no trick that gives trample in this set. So, except for the 2 mana one, I think that's bad. You have to kick it to give it trample too. So that's, yeah. I don't think there's just really any ways to make this just having like an enormous dude be like incredibly good. So, not super in on this guy. Next, threats undetected. 2 and a green. Sorcery. You search your library for 4 creature cards with different powers, and you reveal them. Opponent chooses 2 of those cards and shuffle chosen cards into your library. Put the rest in your hand. I mean, I don't know, man. Like, is this like good or something? Whatever. Like, so you get 2 of your worst creatures, right? So you find your 4 best creatures with different powers. Probably 1 enormous, like you're getting like your 7/7 and then like a 5. So maybe like you draw. So like it's probably just all your biggest stuff in your deck, right? Most of the time is what you're getting with this. It's like a 4/4, a 5/5. Let's say you get 3/3, 4/4, 5/5, 6/6, right? Let's just say that's what you get. So you're getting a 3/3 and a 4/4 most of the time. You're drawing that for 3 mana in the late game. I just don't. I think like it's a lot of hoops to jump through to get your 2 worst cards in your deck. So like 2 bad creatures. So I'm out on this card. Next, Urborg Lurgrioth. 1 and a green for a star / 1+ star. Enters the battlefield with. If when it enters the battlefield, mill 3 cards for each time it was kicked. You can kick it for 1 blue and/or 1 black, and its power is equal to the number of creature cards in your graveyard, and stuff is equal to that number +1. So it I don't think this is very good. There's really no self-mill support other than like the text on the card that you have to kick that would make it just worse. Anyways, I don't really see that being very good. So I think this card is pretty meh in general. So maybe I'm wrong, and maybe it's just really good somehow, but I think it's not something I'm interested in. Next, Vine Shaper Prodigy. 1 and a green for a 2/2 Elf Druid. When it enters the battlefield, if it was kicked, you look at the top 3 cards of your library, put 1 of them into your hand, and the rest on the bottom of your library in the order. Again, sort of just like, this is the 3rd Oregon Hoarder variant of the sets here. Like, we're just... I know, whatever. But it's like, this card, again, this is kind of like a green-blue-gold card, because you really don't want to, like, the 2 mana 2/2 is not, like, no thanks. But if you kick it with blue, it's good. It's good. Like, it's actually playable. So probably just green-blue is going to want this. Next, the Weathered Treaty. 2 and a green for a Saga with Read Ahead. So the first thing is you search the library for a basic land card, put it onto the battlefield, tap, shuffle. You create a 1/1 green sapling creature token, and then the third thing is you give a creature +X/X, and then X is the number of basic lands you control. So this seems good to me. This seems like good, actually. Again, Read Ahead I think shines here because if you're just like have a flyer in play and you just want to hit your opponent for an additional like 2 or 3 damage, you can just do that. And like if it's turn 3 and you want to like ramp and then also get domain types going, this helps you do that, and it does make a 1/1 guy, which you kind of don't really care about, but whatever. So this kind of does it all, and I like it, actually. I think this card's pretty good. Next, the World Spell. 7 mana Saga with Read Ahead. You can look for non-Saga permanents and put them into your hand twice, and then the third thing is you just put 2 non-Saga permanents from your hand onto the battlefield. Generally, these type of cards are bad and limited. They're just too expensive, and you don't have big enough stuff to make this like justified. So, I think this is one of those situations. Next, Yaima Ironclast. 1 and a green for the 3/2 with trample. When it enters the battlefield, if it was kicked and it's kicked for a single red mana, it gets +1/+1 and gains haste until end of turn. So, like this thing is just an absolute beater. I don't care if I have red mana in my deck. I'm gonna put this in my deck. It's just incredibly good. Like, it's just so good. No downside on a 2 mana 3/2. It's just an absurd proposition here. Like it really is just quite a bit. So that's my take on where this card lies here. There's really not much more else to say. All right. Then next is Yaima Sojourner. It's 7 and a green for a 4/6 with domain. It costs 1 less to cast for each basic land type amount of lands you control. No thanks. No. So like, yeah, I mean, I sort of walked through the math here, right? So it's just worse than a 5 mana 4/6, and that's like a 5 mana 4/6. Really, like, are you like, oh man, let me like go tell my dad there's a 5 mana 4/6 on the battlefield? You know, like that's illegal. No, you're fine. Like it's like, oh, but okay, that's fine, but it's not winning anybody any games. So yeah. This card's just kind of meh. That's a, Rather sad way to round out green. Let's go back to this card. This card's a much happier way to round out green instead. And that's it for green. So green's done. I'm done with the color, the multicolored and other stuff remaining here. The more wordy parts of the the thing, but yeah, that's it for this. Thanks for sticking around if you did. If not, you didn't get to hear this part, so that's, whatever. See you in the next part if you're so inclined to keep listening to me ramble about cards.